So we've talked about for loops, while loops, we've talked about collections, but what if we combine the two? Okay, so that's really where a lot of the power from collections and for loops comes from. Like it's really kind of a bread and butter or peanut butter and jelly kind of situation. The two are really made to complement one another. For example, let's say we go back to that bank account example. Say we have a bunch of account names associated with net worths. So just make that a dictionary where the key is string, which represents our names. And then, excuse me, that doesn't have to be in quotes. String : int. And there you go. So we've created this dummy roster of account holders and their net worths. And let's just say we want to print out this table of information. So here's where a for loop can come in handy. We can say for user in account info, and here we can say dot keys dot array. Okay, so if you have an array, or excuse me, if you have a dictionary, define the list of the keys for that dictionary. You say dot keys, and then you say dot array to put that in array format. For now, this is something you just have to kind of memorize. But eventually, as you get more into Swift, we'll understand what each of these tags you're putting on this does and how it all relates to the Swift language. For now, you can kind of treat that as something you just kind of do. And so now, inside this loop, you actually have the user, and you have this for each row in your table. So you might say something like user and then colon dollar, and now you want to say account info user. Okay, so in our console output, it kind of does what we want. It prints out this table, and you have the keys and you have the values, but then unfortunately, what's with this optional stuff that seems to be mucking it up? This is another topic that I'm going to save for the end of our course. It's the discourse on optionals. They're a really powerful part of Swift, but for now, I think it's better to skip over this. So we're going to gloss over optionals, except to say to clear up this particular case where you are getting back an optional wrapped around some value you actually care about. To get rid of that optional, all you have to do is throw an exclamation point at the end of it. And so there, the optional wrapping goes away, and you have the values that you care about, okay? And we're gonna go into all, like how that actually works by the end of this course, I promise. But for now, this is the shortcut to getting something working and to moving on to bigger fish to fry in the short term. Okay, so beautiful. We actually have this code that, look at that, just in 3 lines, can take an arbitrarily large dictionary and print out its key value pairs. So it's really powerful. And some other interesting ways we can combine collections with loops. Let's just say we wanted to print out, I mean, you can imagine at this point, if we had gotten this account information from one source, say from some website, and we wanted to compare that against a list of names that we got from another site, that's something that could be interesting. So let's just say site2 users, Chris, Jack, Jason, Bob, Susie. So again, just the premise of this is that, let's say we're trying to make a conglomerate of these two sites' information. And so on the one hand, we have account information coming from one source, and then we have a list of usernames coming from another source, but this list of usernames may overlap but not be exactly the same. Okay, so now we want to print out all the information that we have for this list of users from site 2. Well, how do we do that? In this case, we want to iterate over the site 2 users. So I want to say something like, for user in site 2 users. And so keep in mind, this is going to look different from what we just wrote a few minutes ago, because site 2 users isn't already an array. It's not a dictionary, so you don't have to tag it with this keys.array. Okay? So we're going to just go back to our plain old for user in template. And now we're going to do something a little more complex. We're going to do a little test. If account info is not equal to nil, then we can take this code here, cut and paste it. Okay. The point is that since we're getting this list of users from another source, it may not match exactly what's in the database. And so the account info table. So we can't just assume that it's in there. In this kind of situation, what we can do is test for nil. So nil means it doesn't exist. So in our dictionary, if we feed it a user that doesn't exist in the dictionary, the return value will be nil. Okay, and so we just simply test for that and then print out in the case where it's not nil. So this way we get what we want, which is a display of the bank account information, but only for the users that we care about grabbed from a second data source.